everybody, this is Cindy, and I'm here today with part 3 on my series of How Are You Smart? So just to recap, we are talking about Dr. Howard Gardner's theory on multiple intelligences. He says that we are all born intelligent, and he divides our intelligence into 9 particular areas. So for a quick review, I'm actually only going to be reviewing 7 of the 9 intelligences today, because that's all I really need to do in order to get on with today's conversation. So with that, verbal linguistic is one of the intelligences. These are our talkers, our readers, our writers. Logical, mathematical, people that are good with numbers, think logically. Body kinesthetic, these are our athletes and people that love to move their bodies. Musical, people that enjoy reading music, playing music, and people who bodies really respond well. They just respond to music. Our spatial intelligence, these are our artists, people that really see form, texture, shape, design. And then interpersonal and intrapersonal. Interpersonal meaning that they enjoy being around a lot of people. Being in groups and crowds and people really bring the best out of them. And intrapersonal meaning someone who enjoys their own company and enjoys being by themselves. Okay, with that quick reminder, here is my 2 cents. I have 3 things to say. The first one has to do with our American education system. The second thing has to do with how we can apply these intelligence theories to our own lives and to the people we love. And the third has to do with autism and the whole idea of being on the spectrum. So to start with, I want to talk about the American education system. America's education system tends to value, in my opinion, only 2 of these intelligences, verbal linguistic and logical mathematical. Let me explain. During the year, or as many of you know, I am a retired teacher, and at the end of every school year, they give standardized tests. Now, standardized tests are not a surprise to you and are nothing new. We hear about the GED exam, the SATs, the LSATs. We know that taking a public school examination is just par for the course. However, when those tests are given, they primarily are measuring reading and math. You have to read, first of all, the tests come in a booklet. So you have to be able to read the questions. You have to have excellent reading comprehension. You have to have a sense of logic to figure out, okay, this is how the test is set up. They want me to, either mix and match. They want me to pull out all of these, none of these. They want me to fill in the bubble. They may be measuring spelling, but they're really measuring word identification, because the student isn't being asked to decode a word. They're being asked to pick out the word that is spelled correctly, that looks correctly. So it's really testing word identification. And even, let's say you're great in music and body kinesthetics. Those are your high intelligences. There's nowhere on the state test that they are measuring your musicality or your physicality. Maybe you are very, one of your high intelligence is interpersonal. You thrive around being in crowds, and you're really brings the best out of you. Think about our politicians, like I had said earlier. There is no way that our state testing measures that kind of intelligence. So that is one thing that I have to say, that in American schools, we tend to value the verbal linguistic, the logical mathematic, because those are the 2 that we take the time to test and put value upon those tests. All right, the second thing I want to talk about is what do those intelligence areas have to do with us? How do we apply them to ourselves? And let me tell you how I do. First of all, I want to identify ways and areas where I am most intelligent. For example, my high intelligence areas are verbal, linguistic, musical, intrapersonal, and interpersonal. I happen to be very low in spatial, very low in body kinesthetic, very low in logical mathematics. So, for example, I can take an elevator, and when I come down or get off of the elevator, I have no memory of whether I'm supposed to turn left or right. I can park at the grocery store. When I get out of the grocery store, I have no memory. I couldn't tell you for the world where I parked. I am not good. If I had to draw a picture, I would have an anxiety attack because I wouldn't be able to do it. I would panic because my intelligence in that area is extremely low. However, I have trained myself. I now look for signs, when I park. Okay, I parked right here, right by the R on Ralph's. Or if I have to go up into an elevator to the doctor's office or whatever, I make little mental signs for myself so that when I get off of the elevator or out of the doctor's office, I make a mental note of which way and how I'm supposed to return to my location. So I've learned to identify my strong areas and work those. And I've also learned to identify my weak areas and try to improve those. All right, now that being said, what about me as a parent or a spouse? And what about you? If I am high in verbal linguistic, if I am high in interpersonal, I'm a party girl. Well, what if I have a child who is intrapersonal, who enjoys her own company, who thrives and does her best work on her own? What if she has a high mathematical, logical intelligence and not the highest verbal linguistic intelligence? So if I'm parenting my child in a way that is opposite of her intelligence areas, that can become a conflict. Maybe I want to take my child to a concert, to a play, to a symphony. I want to encourage my child to take a musical instrument, play the piano, join the Brownies, join the Girl Scouts, take soccer. And that is not her thing. How miserable am I going to make my child when I'm promoting areas that I enjoy in her? So I think that there's a balance here. Number one, as a parent, as a spouse, as a friend, as a person in a relationship, I think it's important to identify our stronger areas of intelligence while honoring and also identifying the areas of stronger intelligence in our loved one. Our goal as parents, our goal as teachers is to bring up the lower areas of our loved one's intelligence while enhancing the stronger areas that they already have. So for example, let's say this is our child's little bar graph here. So let's say as a parent, I would notice, okay, they're strong in math, they're strong in intrapersonal. So these are the areas where they're not quite as strong. So growing up, I'm not going to want to push my child into possibly a physical activity right away. I'm going to want to nurture, provide a safe environment, help figure out where they are strong. But eventually, I'm going to walk very softly and try to develop these areas where they are not quite as strong. So perhaps for spatial, I might recommend a sewing class, or maybe an art class, or trips to the museum, things trying to draw out an area of intelligence in my child or another loved one where I know maybe they are a little bit lower, but I would like them to grow in that area. Okay, with that, I also want to talk about, autism. I want to talk about the spectrum. We, as teachers, as parents, as family members, sometimes we talk about, a child we know has autism, or they're on the spectrum. Maybe they're Asperger's. Maybe they are odd. In my day, we would say they were weird, or they're odd, or they're, we know that's not the way it is. So here's my theory on autism. I think, let's take a look at this. I think if we have every intelligence, what would happen if someone had low intelligence levels in every area, but had one giant high intelligence area? So in this particular graph, I've put very high in math. And do you remember that movie Rain Man? And we often talk about the idiot savant, which I do not like that term, but you'll know what I mean. What if this is the kind of profile they would have? Low everything, but only one area was sky high off the charts. It could actually be any area. Let's say it was spatial. Low everything, but sky high spatial intelligence. What would that look like for a person's personality? What would that look like on for a person's how are they smart? So I would like to put out there that I think autism might be related to this kind of thinking, to this kind of division of intelligence levels, that maybe a child is very low in many of the intelligences, but very high in one or two of the others. And there's such a discrepancy that their brain is just works probably a little bit differently, sees life differently than the rest of us. So anyway, I think that's an interesting food for thought, and that's my 2 cents. I know this video is going long, but I said I had 3 things to talk about, and here's number 3. I think that many of the people in our prisons are very high in spatial, art, body kinesthetic, movement, and possibly intra and musical. I think that many of our prisoners have not done well in our school system because they're not verbal and they're not logical, mathematical. Oftentimes when you see like television shows or something, I notice that the prisoners seem to be artists. They are talented spatially. And they, of course they do the workouts and all that. And maybe this is my small thinking. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. It's my opinion. It's something I have thought about regarding the multiple intelligences. I think that too many of our prisoners are high in spatial, high in body kinesthetic, high in musical, and probably not as high in the other areas of intelligence. And I think that would be interesting to look into. I really do have a lot more to say on this subject, but the video is running quite long. So I'm going to stop here. And please comment. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on 2 cents that I've mentioned? And please feel free to give me yours. So with that, this is Cindy, and until our next conversation, bye-bye.